Good afternoon, dear General.
Good afternoon, Tessy.
It is such an honor and such a pleasure to have you with us here on Zoom O'Clock today. Thank you for your time.
Well, that's a great moment for me to share my thoughts with you and in this precise time of crisis and to look forward for the future.
Thank you so much, sir. So, for the people who do not know General Palomeros yet as good as I do, I'm reading to you a little bit of his bio just to give an introduction. So, General Palomeros is a retired general of the French Air Force and served as Supreme Allied Command Transformation, a senior military post in NATO. This is also how we met, dear General, in Norfolk, Virginia, when I was there for Luxembourg. And I attended the conference. For the people who do not know, NATO is split into two. So you have the SACT and you have the operation side. So the SACT is more about intelligence and strategy. So then also General Palomeros previously served as Chief of Staff of the French Air Force from 2009 to 2012. What an impressive biography, dear General. Thank you so much again. Enough for me talking about you. I would love for you to tell us about your life at NATO, in NATO, and how and why it is important that we support and believe in the NATO alliance, especially nowadays.
Well, thank you to open this line for me, and that's a wonderful moment to share some of my experience and how I see the alliance today and what it is so crucial that we keep it alive and as credible as possible for the future. First and foremost, I enjoyed spending more than 42 years to the service of my country and to NATO. First, I was a fighter pilot. It was really a great motivation for me. And then I discovered that I would say leading people was really a great achievement as well. And that's why I was fortunate enough to be able to fulfill those tasks as the Chief of the Air Force, which was a kind of climax. And I didn't know that it could happen that at a certain stage, the French president asked me to go overseas in Norfolk to lead the transformation of NATO. That was really unexpected, but what a great time, a fascinating time. At this time, NATO was strong of 28 nations when you came and visit us. And now it's 30 nations. That means that NATO is progressively enlarging, which is good news because, you know, the alliance was founded in 1949, just after the two World Wars, and the aim was really how to keep the peace. At this time, it was really built to stop, in a certain way, the Stalinism Soviet expansion, but as well to guarantee that Europe could be free, could keep its freedom and rebuild itself. So NATO has been fundamental, instrumental in the rebuilding of Europe as we know it today. And it worked very well. It ensured the security and the peace, and then the prosperity of Europe. We must keep that in mind for the future as well. And it happened that at the end of the Cold War, when the wall collapsed, the former Warsaw Pact countries, they just were eager to join both NATO and the EU. And this is more or less what happened. Therefore, first conclusion at this stage is that NATO is not an offensive alliance. It's an alliance for peace. It's an alliance to support United Nations statements, declarations, and to support the development of peace in the world in a certain way. And NATO never invaded anybody. NATO has not been, it's a defensive alliance. It's there to protect, to prevent conflicts, crises. And when a nation joined NATO, like it has been the case recently with North Macedonia, just recently, and then 2 years ago with Montenegro, they just joined because they want to be part of this alliance for peace. They don't join, they don't want to be aggressive. They just say, we must protect our freedoms, we must protect our common interest, and this is why we are eager to join NATO. And for me, it was really a great achievement to be ahead of Allied Command transformation, because this command, as you stressed, is about preparing the future. You take the NATO as it is today with the legacy of history, a wonderful legacy, by the way, and then you try to imagine what will be the challenges of tomorrow and how this alliance can keep its credibility confronted with those challenges. And if I put that in a nutshell, the question, the problem of today is that the world is facing many threats, many risks. They are all different. We have seen that with terrorism. Today, it's a different risk. It's a virus. But you have the cyber attacks, the cyber space as well, which is at risk. Even the outer space is no longer as peaceful as we would like. So many domains, you see those risks which are increasing. And then NATO must really commit itself as a 30 members together to protect this, I would say, this space of freedom that all the NATO nations together enjoy themselves. And NATO build partnership, as you know, with many other countries as well, just to say, perhaps you don't want to join NATO, and NATO has not, I would say, the intention to increase out of the larger Europe and the transatlantic part in Canada and in the United States. But nevertheless, it builds a partnership for peace with many countries around the globe, including, I would say, Japan, Australia, Finland, and Sweden, which are very close to NATO, but not part of NATO today. Switzerland is a great partner as well. So you see, there is a benefit with such an alliance to have the ability to discuss defense and security matters. And if you look today, there are not so many. In fact, this is the only one forum where the head of states and government, and I was fortunate to take part in those discussions between, it was mainly in 2014 in Wales, where we had, I was just a neighbor of Mr. Obama, you know, a great neighbor around the table, and it was really fascinating to see all these people discussing not only about NATO itself, but about security, discussing about terrorism, discussing about the threat of the future. And I engaged those head of states and government just to stress what would be the risk and the threats for the future and what they had to do. And by the way, this is when they decided that it was the time to reinvest in defense, because with the legacy, with the dividend of peace after the end of the Cold War, most of the countries have decided to reduce dramatically their spending in defense to such a level that was putting a NATO credibility at risk. And this is why we really push very much forward to say, well, if NATO countries don't reinvest, they will not be able to face the threat to the future. So really a great job, fascinating people. You know, there are big countries and small countries in NATO, but there are no big people and small people. Every contribution is worthy. My best achievement, perhaps, and my best, I would say, satisfaction was to work with all these men and women coming from 28 different nations for the same aim, for the same goal, taking their legacy, their history, their background, and showing that even small countries, and you come from Luxembourg, even small countries can provide a huge contribution. And this is a great lesson that I learned in NATO.
Absolutely. I agree with you so much. And I will always remember how you welcomed me with open arms when I joined the conference in Norfolk, Virginia, 5 years ago now, by opening the whole conference with all of the 28 member states present, with the Luxembourgish lyrics of our national anthem, by saying we want to remain what we are. And I thought that was so beautiful. And a second message, which came straight after that, which you are one of the big advocates for it as well, and you inspired me a lot with it, was the message that we need more young leaders in NATO, that we need young brains, young ideas, more collaboration. So what do you want to share on that topic by including more young people today? Why is it important?
Well, fortunately, Europe has not seen a major conflict within its borders for now 80 years. Just marked, by the way, the 75th years of 8th of May 1945. And then you see that all these generations, my father, grandfather, who have really faced those tragedies of the 20th century, they will no longer be there to tell the story.
Well, we just had the VE 75th anniversary of Europe Day, right?
Yeah, and so somewhere we have to pass this history to the young generations. Not only for the memory, obviously there is this remembrance, but as well, I think John F. Kennedy said that if you are not able to assume your past, you will not be able to build your future. Many talented leaders have the same vision, saying, and I don't think that you can learn that only in the books, history books. You have to really realize why these people, what they did, and why they did what. And it was not by chance. I mean, if you look at the end of the Second World War, all these responsible and very committed people, most of them, they have been through the First World War, they were young, and then the Second World War, even worse. And they come together and say, well, this is enough. This is just enough. We cannot tolerate that. Generations are lost. Generations are lost because we are not able to work together for the future. And they build this wonderful architecture, the UN on the one hand, the NATO, many other pieces, and the building, the start of the EU. And this is why we are celebrating now on the 9th of May, the birthday of the EU, the foundation. And it came into place, and for decades, it worked very well. Now we have to face a different world. We have to accommodate with more globalization. Fine. We have different challenges. Obviously, climate change is a huge challenge. Digitalization of the world, globalization of exchanges, and still we have those threats, the ancient threats, because some countries, unfortunately, big countries are rearming themselves, which is worrying for me, because I don't understand why. Why those countries need to rearm at such a level? I mean, keeping defense at the proper level is fine, because you protect yourself, you protect your friends, you protect your lives. But when you make big investments, huge investments, you say, well, if you do that, we have seen that between the two world wars. I mean, when Germany was Nazis rebuilt the German armies, German military capability, it was not for nothing, because they had in mind, Hitler had in mind to invade other countries. So you say, well, why China is doing that? Even the US, I mean, a big ally, it's a great power because it's a great responsibility, of course. But this race for armament is not good for the world. As a military, as a chief, a former chief, I can tell you that for the young generations, we cannot tolerate those kind of race for weapons. We need a defense to protect our liberty and freedom, because some days we have to face terrorism, we have to face the rise of some countries which don't accept this freedom, our way of thinking, who are jeopardizing our interest, our freedom. So we must be able, and NATO is there for that. But so you have those risks, and in addition, now you have new risks in cyberspace, cyber attacks, cyber security, the outer space. Now you see that there is a kind of risk as well, because this is a contested space now, where everybody wants to take his share in the exo-atmospheric and the outer space. And you see as well in terms of information, disinformation is a great risk for democracies, as we have seen. So we have big challenge, and this is really my conviction, only the young people will be able to tackle that, because we have to innovate, we have to rebuild this. It's part of the world, part of these institutions. The UN are not, there are good people in the UN, but they are not working as well as in the past. And it is not because of the people who work for the UN, it's because there is a kind of blockage. And I speak very frankly to you and to all the people who listen to that, because we must be frank with ourselves. We must look the future in the eyes and say, well, so we cannot tolerate that those institutions progressively are lost in the process and lose their ability to stabilize in a certain way the world. There are some responsibility for sure. I will not go into internal politics in any countries, but I think the leaders, they must really consider that what they will leave for the future. And this is why I was pleased that France elected a young president. And I think that the world belongs to the young generations, and we have to give them all the tools that are possible to build that. But nevertheless, we should be there to support them, to help them, to understand at least why we have done what we have done and what are the risks, and not taken for granted the legacy that we are leaving them. Freedom is a wonderful legacy, but it's not there forever if we don't take care of that. Democracy is a wonderful legacy, but it will be there if we are able to defend it, to protect it. That's the fight of a life. I mean, we cannot accept that we have lived in such a world where we are today, and to let it go just because we have not the courage and the ability to rebuild some institutions and to support transformation of NATO, for instance, of the EU, and of many of the UN. And so this is still my great commitment, and for the young generations to make sure that they understand that. And when I speak to the young leaders, what I like very much is that they are enthusiastic. There are a lot of dynamism, very enthusiastic, and I'm sure they will find solutions that we have not been able to find so far. And this is my hope, and this is my conviction as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, General. Our time has run out. So if I may, would you like to share maybe 30 seconds of either a quote or poem, or just a short key takeaway to wrap up the video with everyone listening right now?
It's not a quote or a poem, but this is my own understanding of the world. This world is moving fast. This world is a world of technology. This world is a world of speed. But mainly it's a word of good people, of men and women, and who deserve the best for themselves, for their family. And we need to struggle to rebuild this world together, not to build walls, to build bridges in the world.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, General. And we continue speaking a bit offline. And yeah, it was really an honor to have you here today. Thank you.
My pleasure.